So for my Cammy wig, I'm going to be using two of an identical wig. I've already chopped this one, and we're going to firstly start off by putting talc powder through it. And I've also got a spray with a little bit of fabric softener in it just to soften up the fibers. So I've got this one, which will be the base wig. I'll be putting this into a pixie cut. And then I have this long one, and we're going to be cutting this one into wefts and making the ponytails out of it. So this is the inside of this wig cap, and what we're going to do is we're probably going to cut it about in half because I want the ponytails to be quite thick. So ignoring this bit because it will make your wig a bit hard, is we want to halve these tracks. One will be left, one will be the right, and we'll see how we go. So this is that bottom section, and I've just started cutting the elastic that keeps this all together, started cutting that apart. This is the top bit. We might be able to salvage some of these wefts later on, but I'm going to see how well this one alone will go. So I'm just going to cut all these bits separate and see how puffy we get the wefts. So all of the wefts are now cut apart, including along the sides. I'll figure out what's happening with this later. So let's pull this apart and section it into about equals on each side and see how thick it is. So I took a few more extra wefts out of here because these were not quite thick enough. So I've put just two more, and they're actually quite thick by themselves. So I've got one of those in the ponytail. So let's braid these and see whether we can get it to be thick enough. Let's do it. So I've started off the roll by just gluing one of the wefts. This was off that top bit that I wasn't sure whether I was going to use it. So I've used it as a base, and you just glue along the layers. And now I'm going to put strips of glue along here or along here to just glue it and keep on gluing it in that spiraled shape. Don't worry too much about the thickness because this is going to go on the inside of the wig. So here is one of the two ponytails. It's got this manky bit here, but this section's going to be inside the wig, and then it's going to pop out of the base wig. And I've put a little bit of the fabric softener solution in it just so it stays nice and separate. This one went pretty well. This other one had a bit of issues with the glue tangling bits up in it, so it's a bit manky, but I will thin those ends. Yeah, fucking look, there's even a little bit here. So now I have my two ponytails ready to braid. So this is how I've braided them. I've realized that this one is a little bit thicker than this one, but what you can also do is just pull bits apart. And I've put hair ties on the end. I've got to change those to red ones, but what I've done is gone over it with like 4 or so layers of hairspray, just so little snags don't come out, and it keeps it from fraying. And what you do, you just go hairspray, hairdryer, hairspray, hairdryer, and then it gets to, like, it's a bit crunchy, and that'll dry out a bit better, but it means that it won't like fray out and look really garbage after one wear. So yeah. So because my wig is not a lace front, we need to cover up this section up here where the join is. So what I do is I cut a little tiny bit of hair just in the middle to act as like a fringe style. And we can cut this shorter if we need to, but I know Cammy's hair is actually in the center and she has two little tiny bits. But because mine is not a lace front, if I do that, it's going to show this section. So what I need to do is make her fringe kind of inaccurately and have a big fringe bit on both sides rather than one big fringe bit on this side and a little tiny one that goes like almost over her eye. So I am loosely doing her style, but just for comfort and overall look, I'm just going to do kind of like a side fringe sort of thing on both sides. So we've got our wig on. It looks really garbage because I just chopped it earlier. But what we want to do is work out where we want to put our fringe. I've cut this little bit in the middle, which will hide the track right here. And we're going to section off our fringe And I like to put a hair tie in it just to make sure that it's not going to get mixed in when we're cutting the pixie bowl cut on the back. So now we've sectioned these front fringe bits off. As you can see, we've got some hair here, so we're going to make sure our pixie cut will cover that. So what we need to do now, there's probably a better way to do this, but I usually just take a visual analysis of how much I want to chop off each side. So knowing that I want to chop off about half here, I don't know how to show you, but the back, I'm like, I don't want to chop up too much. Don't even know whether you can see that, but yeah. The back, I'm like, this, we don't want to show this bit, so we want to just cut it just a little bit off, because we can always cut that a bit shorter later on, because I don't want to obviously cut the back of my head on my head. So we're going to put it on a wig stand and then we're going to style it on there, but just look and think, how much do I want to cut off here? Because you can always cut a bit more, but you cannot put hair back on once it's done. So let's put this on a wig stand and see how we go. So we've got our wig on our wig stand, and what I've done, this is the back of the wig, front of the wig, and I've got the bulk of the top up here, and I've just got a few layers. Try and stick with the tract, it's usually just the easiest. And I've got just like a few layers down here. So we're going to start by styling the base of the wig, and we want to make sure that we don't take it too short, so we're not going all the way up to this tract. So I pretty much just want to chop like that amount off, making sure that we're not chopping it too short and not too thin as well. I like using these from Daiso. They also come in a green long one. This one, apparently you can't replace the blade. I've been trying to replace it for about half an hour now. I can't get the casing off. But the green ones have replaceable blades, and essentially you run it down the hair and it thins it for you. I like to use it to cut my wigs rather than using scissors, because scissors get super choppy. This makes sure that you don't get any choppy marks because it gradually cuts the hair. So I put half of that up because I realized I wanted a bit more control over what the bottom looks like, but this is the first bottom layer, and let's take this bit out, and let's start on this bit, shall we? Yeah, you can see like how much this needs to be layered now. Let's keep going. Here we are with about half the wig styled. I might have to go back in and do these bits, but I don't like doing those until I put it on my head and then I go back in and fix it. So we got it longer in the center, shorter on the outsides, and I really want to glue this down. Well, not glue, but like hairspray it down so it stays nice and you don't see any bits appearing or moving around. But as you can see, we're really covering those bottom tracks and tapering it into that pixie cut look. So we've already pretty much done it for this side, but what we're going to do is we're going to tease up the fringe to make it stand away from the face. And how we're going to do that, we're going to use a teasing brush for this one, and this is how you tease any hair. And it's essentially just give it that volume. So you go, oh, I wish I could get it correct height. But we're going to go in with this hair. I've kind of already done it, but you pull up the hair in the opposite direction to the way it's going to fall. And you just go pull down, pull down, pull away, pull down, pull down, pull away, pull down, pull down, pull away. And I'll make this huge, disgusting mess. Then all you got to do is go through and just comb it down. And this will just be pulling out the top sort of layers. And pull away. So what I'm going to do is keep on working on this. Just if you pull too much out of it. So this one, I want it to peak more at the front. I want it to have more of like that sort of look. So what I'm going to do is keep on teasing it and pull the teasing down. If you want it to be more poking upwards, you pull the teasing closer to the base of the wig. And you want to avoid teasing this sort of section just so it stays all nice and fluffy. And let's see how we go with that. So here it is with the fringe all styled. I've put a bit of hairspray in it so it kind of stays together. I cut this side a little bit because what she's actually meant to have is that one big one and a small one. But if you do that properly in real life and take it literally, I would need a lace front, one, and it also doesn't look as nice because one, shadows exist in the real world and big things going across your face leave a big shadow. Like you can see the shadow. Imagine if I had one right here, it would block my eye, it would look terrible. So I wanted to do more of like a real life version. So I've done more of like a styled sort of thing. The thing you have to be wary about if you're using a wig color that is lighter or different to your actual hair is if you coif it up, you're gonna have sideburns. So what you have to do is leave little bits, and on the day make sure you glue that down, or the other option is putting glue over the top of your hair and putting foundation over it so you cannot see the color, or somehow spray painting that side fringe. But the best option is to just leave it, and if I glue that bit down, you can no longer see my natural hair color come through. So now what I'm gonna do is, if I hold my ponytail up to it, figure out where you're going to put your ponytail, making sure that you don't just do it on a wig head, do it on your actual head so you know where you're gluing it. So you just figure out where you want to put it. I want to put it just behind the ear sort of thing. And now we're ready to sew it in. Try not to glue it in, sew it into the wig. Let's do it. Here we are with the wig done. I end up, doing exactly the same thing that I told you guys not to do. Yeah, I just glued it on because I tried to sew it, and because it's got a lot of glue in this base, it's so thick that I can't put a needle through it, and I had a needle that was like this long and I just couldn't get it through. So you can glue it, it does work. So I wouldn't suggest it if you can get away with any sort of other style with something thinner, like a Nurse Joy. If you did the Nurse Joy hoops, you could 100% just sew it on, but I had to glue it. I thought that I glued it a bit too far forward, but then when I put on the hat, it looks a bit more normal. Sorry, I can't actually properly, there we go. Kind of put on the hat, and the hat should sit about here. It makes it look a bit more normal, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Just needs a bit more brushing, but that's how I did my wig for Cammy. So thank you so much.